Today's discussion is going to focus on letters of intent, the non-binding provisions and the binding provisions you usually find in them. A letter of intent is basically a letter that can consist of binding provisions from a buyer of a business to a seller of a business. It's indicating their intent to pay a certain price for your business and outlining the terms and conditions of the transaction in which they're going to buy your business. Non-binding provisions in a letter of intent typically consist of a variety of different provisions. One, it'll talk about the structure of the deal. Is it an asset purchase or a stock purchase? Is it going to be a stock purchase treated like an asset purchase for tax purposes? What kinds of due diligence need to be conducted in the period after the letter of intent is signed so that the purchaser can get comfortable with the seller's business? And of course, it outlines the terms that might be contained in the purchase agreement, albeit all non-binding until due diligence is completed. Importantly, the non-binding provisions include the purchase price and the terms and conditions under which the purchase price will or should be paid if a definitive purchase agreement is entered into by the parties. The purchase agreement, of course, in addition to having the price and the structure spelled out in detail, contains representations and warranties, covenants, various agreements and conditions, indemnities and set-offs, and even escrows that are normally associated with transactions between a willing buyer and a willing seller. The binding provisions are few. Number one, there may be an exclusivity period. If the buyer expects to spend a lot of time and effort and expense in conducting due diligence on your business, it's going to want to bind you to a provision that says you cannot enter into any discussions or other agreements with any other prospective buyers for a specified period of time after the LOI is signed. This is known as an exclusivity provision, and often it may be 90 days or more. You're going to want to limit that period in case you want to limit the time period from the beginning of due diligence until a purchase agreement is signed. This allows the buyer to sue you for damages if you breach the agreement. In other words, you go out and don't adhere to the exclusivity provisions in the letter of intent. In addition, a letter of intent will contain confidentiality and non-solicitation provisions. If you didn't already enter into a non-disclosure agreement with your buyer or have good, strong non-solicitation provisions in your NDA with the prospective buyer, try to get them in the letter of intent as part of the LOI's binding provisions. This will prevent either the seller or the buyer from disclosing the existence or the contents of the LOI or the fact that they've even entered into discussions. It also prevents the buyer from snooping around your business and taking your customers or employees, if you have a good binding non-solicitation provision. The buyer cannot go out and solicit or hire or otherwise interfere with your employees or your customers during the period that it's covered. Once you sign the LOI, you're effectively engaged to your buyer, but you're not married. And like any engagement, it can be broken off at any time. Unless there's some kind of breakup fee initiated or negotiated as part of the LOI, either party can go away, and the only thing that they will have incurred is the cost of hiring attorneys and people to help them conduct due diligence. You may sign a definitive agreement and you may not. If you don't, there's no obligation to go forward. If you do, then the parties are going to be bound to enter into a deal where there will be a closing at some point in time in the future. I encourage you to read my new book, Your Multi-Million-Dollar Exit, for more information on LOIs and basically the nuts and bolts of buying and selling a business, really from the seller's perspective. It's an Amazon bestseller, And we hope that you enjoy the book, and we hope you're enjoying these educational moments